And welcome back, All Sports West New York. My good friend Art Wander back with us. We were just talking Buffalo Bills. Before we stop talking about the Buffalo Bills, though, I do want to quickly say, you mentioned Jim Kelly. Of course, we're all wishing Jim the best. He's done with his chemo treatments. He's still got some radiation treatments. And, we're hoping and praying that, that this does the trick.
I watched your interview with him, and it seems like he was so full of life. I mean, you wouldn't know he was sick, or had an illness.
Let me say, that day, though, he's a great actor because he was in a lot of pain. He was in a lot of pain, yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah, very strong and a tough guy. And like I said, but he very much wants to be a part of the ownership group that ends up keeping this team in town.
I hope whoever buys it involves him, as I said.
Right.
Okay.
Sabres hockey.
Yes.
Tim Murray.
Yes.
The Islanders have decided we're not giving you our first pick this year. You're getting our first pick next year. What do you think that means?
I think that's good for the Buffalo Sabres because next year's draft is going to be filled with tremendous hockey players as opposed to this year. They had the first pick, so what? They're going to probably pick Bennett, the center, in the draft later in June. But next year, there's going to be a wealth of talent, and if the Islanders fall, wherever they fall, then Buffalo is going to be in good position. The only thing I worry about is if this guy that I just cannot stand, Gary Bettman, goes through with his plans to change the lottery rules. You know what the proposals are?
No, what is it?
The proposals are, rather than take the teams with the losingest record get more of a chance in the lottery system, he's going to average 5 years. Go 5 years for the average to determine who the worst teams are, which is idiocy.
You're not a fan of Gary Bettman.
No way, no how. Absolutely not. The guy should quit while he's never been ahead.
Hey, Ryan Miller. You think they should bring back Ryan Miller?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And why not?
Because he has shown that age is creeping up on him, and he is not the goaltender that he was in his heyday. The mistake that Tim Murray made, or the Buffalo Sabres made, was not retaining Halleck, whom they acquired from the Islanders with Molson in the trade for Vanek. Halleck's numbers are great because he had a 2.21 with a 915, 920 save percentage, and he would have been great, but they just let him walk. They just let him go. And now I think he's signed back with the Islanders. They should have kept him. I do not think that Enroth is any more than a backup goaltender. So Murray's job is going to be find a goaltender, but one that's going to produce. As far as Miller is concerned, he has history with Buffalo, and that's the way it should be. Same with Vanek. Vanek, somebody mentions to me and says, well, how about Thomas Vanek? I says, no. Look what they are doing when it matters the most right now in the playoffs. Vanek with the Canadiens, and of course Miller ousted already.
He kind of took care of his own future with that poor performance in the final 3 games.
Well, it wasn't the final 3 games, Bob. He lost 6 of the last 7 games and lost the President's Cup because St. Louis was leading in the President's Cup for the best record in the National Hockey League, and Miller took him south. Third.
Your knock on Miller, though, is that he's not what he used to be. Are any of us really what we used to be, Art?
Huh? Can I still remember? Do I still have the faculty around me at age 42?
Now, John DeShulo, of course, who is our head of production and promotion, and he's also the host of our brand new game show that's going to debut June 9th.
Yep.
Bragging Rights.
Right.
Believe me, Bob Barker has nothing on John DeShulo. But John DeShulo loves it when you come on because he loves hearing your stories.
Of course. We were talking about it in the conference room. Conference room. Two crates and 2 chairs.
Actually, it's much nicer than that. Yeah. You're speaking in my office. So you go back to the 50s, and of course, last week was the Giants of Buffalo Broadcasting here on
Susan
WBBZ.
Banks. Yep.
And we had the radio guys and we had the TV guys, Irv, Rick, and Tom. You started out working with Irv Weinstein at WKBW.
Right. And, I was there 2 years before Irv and Danny Neverth arrived. I got there in 1956.
But you
I
worked
was
with
the
Irv.
last disc jockey to do a show from the outside at KBW.
Didn't you? You worked with Irv in another market, though.
Aha! Yes. Everybody thinks that Irv made his career all the way from day one in Buffalo and at WKBW. Not so. In 1959, Irv and I accepted positions at KXL in Portland, Oregon, and we flew over to the station that was owned by Frank Sinatra and Danny Kaye. And 3 months after we got there, we got canned. And Irv then went to KSDO in San Diego before returning to Buffalo. Me, I joined the McClendon organization, which was the greatest move I ever made because every broadcaster should have worked.
So you
for a
never
guy
worked
like,
with Irv at
I
KB
haven't
Radio.
Finished.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I worked with Irv at KB Radio from 58 when they arrived. I said I was there 2 years before they
Right,
arrived.
but you just said you and Irv worked there in 59 in Portland.
59. Well, I left in early 59 and then went with McClendon. But Irv and I used to write newscasts for him. I'm going to show you, I'm going to email the article to you where Irv told Alan Pergamon, said Art Wander would write silly copy and I would break up on the air because Irv and I did work together at KBW.
What is an example of a news copy that you would write?
Aha! Okay. If WBEN Jack Ogilvy in the morning would do a story like Buffalo, a 28-year-old woman was fatally injured when she fell from atop the Statler Hilton Hotel. She was pronounced dead at the scene. I would write it for Irv, or I would do it myself. Buffalo. A voluptuous blonde bombshell plummeted 16 stories, crashing to the pavement.
He would read it that way.
He would read it that way, and he'd do everything to hold himself back from laughing.
And that was called Pulse Beat News.
Pulse Beat News. We used to do little slug lines, okay? If there once was a fire in a prison, and I wrote the slug line, and Irv rarely took a look at the newscast before going on. So the slug line I wrote for him was, incarcerated inmate ignites institution. More laughter.
That made it fun, though. That made
it fun. That was great fun.
You think we're ever going to lose radio, Art?
Yes, the way we knew it right now, the problem lies is that one person owns all the radio stations in the market. There is no competitive juices flowing between the stations. If you were working here in Buffalo, you had to compete against other radio stations. You had to be sharp, you had to be promotion-minded, and you really had to have great personalities. Now, who cares? One station does good in the ratings, the other doesn't. It's the same ownership. Bad.
You helped Lenny Dawson get his start in Kansas City.
Randy said Dawson in Kansas City, and an offensive lineman that came to play with the Irv Goody, who played with the Buffalo Bills. They both were in sales in St. Louis at WIL radio station. Nice guys, both of them. But Lenny Dawson used to get me sideline tickets. I used to be able to go out on the field and watch the Cardinals play.
And of course, Dan Patrick, who went on to ESPN fame, now has his own radio show. You worked with him too.
Patrick, not worked. He worked for me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was high. Yeah. But the thing about Dan Patrick and the Rick Dees, who worked for me, is that they always gave credit to me, for helping him advance. Dan Patrick was a superb broadcaster, but he was a disc jockey.
Yes, in his early days.
Yes, in Dayton.
You were
there at that time, weren't you?
At the University of Dayton, I was a little bit ahead of Dan, 2 years ahead of Dan.
Was Patty Spittler at WBBZ?
She graduated the year I graduated, yeah.
Okay.
1996. So, John DeSciullo had a great idea.
Yes.
One of these nights, we're just going to sit down with you and we're just going to let you go.
Oh, by golly, do you have 4 hours?
Well, that's, we'll edit it down to a 15-minute show, but we'll just let you go.
Yeah.
John, Art, it's always a pleasure. It's so much fun being with you.
Okay.
What?
Ray is a New England Patriots fan, a Yankee fan. Al is a Yankee fan. Nate is a Yankee fan. And JoJo I mentioned you, so please. I'm afraid I will have to wear a goalie mask so you don't scratch
These
my eyes.
are your
out.
cronies.
Right.
Okay.
No,
Plus the waitresses.
Jojo and Jennifer work for the center. They do a great job.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
great center.
All right. Am I eligible to go there yet for lunch?
Well, no. You're what, 33?
I wish. Yeah, I wish. Artie,
Yes, you
thank you
can.
so much. Thank you so much.
Okay.
We'll be back to wrap up All Sports right after this.